Have you ever found yourself replaying the same moment over and over again? The betrayal, the harsh words, the silence that followed. Nights when you stare at the ceiling, whispering the same thought, if only they said sorry, maybe I could move on. It's a feeling that haunts so many of us, the invisible chain that ties us to yesterday. We wait for those two words, I'm sorry, believing they hold the power to heal our wounds. But instead of freeing us, the waiting turns into a prison. Days pass, months fade, sometimes even years, yet the apology never comes. And so we remain stuck, circling the same memory like a bird with broken wings, never realizing that the cage is one we built ourselves. But here's the truth. An apology may never come. The person who hurt you might not even remember what they did. They might justify it, excuse it, or worse, they may never even care. And if you keep waiting for their words, you hand them the keys to your peace. You let them decide when you're allowed to heal. The reason you can't move on isn't because the wound is too deep. It's because you're still waiting for someone else to close it for you. But what if I told you that you don't need their permission? What if the real apology you've been waiting for is the one you give yourself? Welcome to the Forgotten Chapters, a place where hidden truths, timeless wisdom, and unspoken struggles are brought to light. Here, we uncover the stories that echo through history and the lessons that reach into our lives today. This isn't just another channel, it's a journey, a reminder that the pain we carry, the questions we bury, and the chains we drag behind us all have deeper meaning. And sometimes, the answers we're searching for aren't out there in someone else's mouth. They're buried right inside our own heart, waiting to be uncovered. In today's chapter, we dive into one of the most subtle prisons of the human soul, the need for an apology. Think about it. How many years have been lost because we kept waiting for someone to admit they were wrong? How many friendships, marriages, or even dreams were delayed because we refused to move forward without closure? Yet history, philosophy, and even psychology all whisper the same truth. The apology you're waiting for may never come. And that's okay. Because freedom doesn't begin when they speak. It begins when you decide. So stay with me until the very end of this video, because the reflection we'll share at the close may just give you the key you've been waiting for all along. There's a strange kind of prison that needs no walls, no guards, no chains. It is built out of silence. When someone wounds us deeply and walks away without acknowledgement, we are left clutching the pain, waiting for words that never arrive. That wait becomes our captivity. You see, the hurt itself might have lasted for a moment, but the absence of an apology lingers for years. We replay the scene, not because we enjoy the memory, but because we're hoping that somehow it will end differently the next time we recall it. Psychologists call it the need for closure. Humans are wired to complete unfinished stories. Our hearts ache when something feels unresolved. An apology, we believe, would close the book. But in truth, we often hand over our peace of mind to those least willing to give it back. The longer we wait, the deeper the bitterness grows. It is not the offense that chains us, it is the silence afterward. Even history bears witness to this truth. Families have split, communities have been torn apart, and nations have gone to war, not only because of the harm done, but because no one dared to say, we were wrong. Nelson Mandela once said, resentment is like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemies. The tragedy is that waiting for an apology does exactly that. It poisons us, while the offender continues unbothered. And so, many of us remain trapped in this invisible prison, thinking freedom will come the moment they utter, I'm sorry. But the harsh reality is that freedom never comes from their lips. It begins within. The longer you wait, the longer you remain chained to a past that cannot change. But what happens when the apology you're waiting for never comes? What happens when the person who broke you never even sees your pain? Or worse, believes they owe you nothing? That's the moment life demands a choice. Will you keep waiting, or will you choose to walk free? Don't stop here. This is only the beginning. The truth in the next chapter may shift how you see forgiveness forever. Make sure you're subscribed to the Forgotten Chapters and share your thoughts in the comments, because sometimes the words we need most are the ones we give ourselves. One of the greatest deceptions of the human heart is the belief that an apology will somehow restore the balance of power. We think, if they just admit they're wrong, I'll finally be in control again. But here's the truth. The longer we wait for that moment, the more power we give away. We place our healing in the hands of those who may never care enough to return it. And in doing so, we turn our offenders into the silent gatekeepers of our peace. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." What he meant was simple. The only thing truly within your control is your response. You cannot control their pride. You cannot control their silence, but you can control what you choose to carry and what you choose to lay down. The apology you're waiting for is an outside event, and Marcus would tell you to stop chasing it because it will only lead you deeper into chains. Think of it like waiting for rain in the desert. Day after day, you keep your eyes on the horizon, hoping clouds will gather, but they never come. Meanwhile, you starve, you weaken, and you lose hope. The rain might come eventually, or it might not. But in the waiting, you lose yourself. True freedom is not found in the arrival of clouds, but in learning to dig a well within, and that's where the illusion of control shatters. You don't need them to hand you back your dignity with words. You don't need them to heal your scars with an apology. The moment you stop expecting them to repair what they broke is the moment you take your power back. But here's the shocking reality. Sometimes the people who hurt you don't even think they've done anything wrong. To them, it's just another day, another moment forgotten. Meanwhile, you're bleeding over a wound they won't even acknowledge. So the question is, will you keep waiting, or will you reclaim your peace? If this speaks to you, let me know in the comments. I want to hear your story. And don't forget to subscribe to the Forgotten Chapters so you don't miss the wisdom ahead. Because in the next chapter, we'll uncover why silence hurts more than words and how it secretly deepens the wound. Sometimes, it's not the insult, the betrayal, or even the lie that cuts the deepest. It's the silence that follows. Silence has a weight heavier than any word spoken. When someone hurts you and then disappears without acknowledgement, the absence of their voice echoes louder than the offense itself. You're left not only with the wound, but also with the haunting question, do they even care? That silence becomes its own form of cruelty. Psychologists say unresolved conflict magnifies pain. Our brains crave explanation, and when we don't get it, we create our own stories, usually darker than the truth. Silence feeds those stories. It whispers lies. You didn't matter. Your pain was meaningless. They've moved on while you're still stuck. And the more you listen to that silence, the more unbearable it becomes. In many ways, silence doesn't just deepen the wound, it multiplies it. History reminds us of this as well. Whole generations have carried unspoken trauma because those responsible never admitted it. Victims of war, betrayal, and even family breakdowns know the sting of silence more than the sting of action. An enemy's blow is painful, but a loved one's silence is devastating. As Paul Bowes once wrote, "Forgiveness does not change the past, but it does enlarge the future." The future shrinks when silence holds you captive, but forgiveness chosen without their words breaks that cycle. The truth is, silence hurts because we expect it to be broken. We wait for the call, the message, the visit, the simple "I was wrong." But sometimes the silence never ends. And that's where the hardest decision must be made. Will you keep waiting for sound that may never come, or will you choose to create your own closure? But if silence is their weapon, what's the weapon you can use to fight back? What if the very emptiness that tortures you could become the soil for your healing? Stay with me, because the answer isn't in waiting for their words, it's in discovering the words you speak to yourself. Don't go anywhere. The wisdom in the next chapter will open your eyes. If this resonates with you, drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's build this conversation together. And make sure you're subscribed to the Forgotten Chapters, because what comes next could transform the way you see forgiveness forever. There is a hard truth many of us spend years avoiding. Some people will never apologize. Not because they can't, but because they won't. Pride is a wall too high for them to climb. To admit fault would shatter the image they've built of themselves, so instead, they carry on as if nothing happened, while you carry the weight of their silence. Sometimes it's not even pride, but indifference. They may not see the harm they caused, or worse, they may not care. And here lies the danger. Waiting for an apology from someone like that is like waiting for a ship at the airport. You will stand there forever, wasting years, watching your hopes slowly turn into bitterness. The apology you are waiting for will never arrive. This reality is devastating, but also freeing. Because once you accept that you may never hear the words, "I'm sorry," you begin to take back your power. You stop checking your phone for messages that will never come. You stop replaying conversations that will never be had. Instead, you realize that healing was never meant to come from their lips. It was meant to start in your heart. As Buddha said, holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. The apology you'll never receive is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where forgiveness doesn't come from them, but through you. A chapter where freedom is no longer tied to their pride, but to your strength. But here's the twist. What if the apology you've been waiting for doesn't need to come from them at all? What if the only voice that can set you free is your own? The next chapter will show you how forgiveness without their words becomes the most powerful freedom of all. Like this video if this truth is speaking to you, and share it with someone who might need to hear it today. And don't forget to subscribe to the Forgotten Chapters, because the wisdom in the next chapter will reveal how to forgive, even when you never hear, "I'm sorry." Forgiveness is often misunderstood. We are taught to believe that it is a transaction, that one person admits their guilt and the other grants mercy. But life doesn't always work that way. Sometimes forgiveness must exist in silence, without their words, without their acknowledgement, and without their change. Because forgiveness, in its purest form, was never for them. It was for you. When you forgive without hearing, "I'm sorry," you are not excusing what they did. You are not saying their actions were right. Instead, you are choosing to stop carrying a burden that was never yours to hold. Imagine dragging a heavy chain through life, waiting for someone else to unlock it. Forgiveness is when you finally realize you've been holding the key all along. There are countless stories of people who found peace without an apology. Survivors of betrayal, abuse, and abandonment who decided that they would no longer be defined by what someone else refused to admit. They realized that closure is not given, it is created. They learned to release themselves from the prison of waiting, and in doing so, they rediscovered joy. As Reinhold Niebuhr once said, "Forgiveness is the final form of love." Love for others, yes, but also love for yourself. This kind of forgiveness requires courage. It means letting go of the hope that they will fix the past. It means stepping into the future with scars that may never be acknowledged. But it also means freedom. And that freedom is worth more than any apology could ever be. But if forgiveness is the key, then what is the final lock that still keeps so many people chained? The truth is, even after forgiveness, some remain stuck, because they are still waiting for permission to move on. The final chapter will reveal how to break free completely. Subscribe to the Forgotten Chapters if you haven't already, because the conclusion of this story is where everything comes together. And while you wait, share your thoughts in the comments, because someone reading your words might find the courage to forgive and finally walk into freedom. There comes a point where you realize the only person still holding you back is you. For years you've been waiting for their apology, waiting for their recognition, waiting for them to set you free. But life is too short to hand your future to someone who is still trapped in their own pride. Moving on does not require their permission. It requires your decision. Think about this. Every day you wait for an apology is another day they control your joy. But when you decide to move on without it, you reclaim your power. You declare, "You may have taken a chapter of my life, but you will not own the rest of the book." That choice transforms bitterness into wisdom and wounds into strength. Mahatma Gandhi once said, "The weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. And he was right. To forgive without an apology is an act of strength. To move on without their words is a declaration of independence. You are no longer waiting at the door of someone else's conscience. You are walking into your own freedom. So stop waiting for them to admit what you already know. Stop waiting for the words that may never come. The apology you've been waiting for isn't in their mouth. It's in your heart. And the moment you speak it to yourself is the moment you step into the life you were meant to live. This isn't just about your past, it's about your future. The question isn't whether they'll ever say I'm sorry. The real question is, will you keep holding your life hostage until they do? Or will you finally choose freedom and write the next chapter on your own terms? If this chapter speaks to you, don't let it stop here. Share this video with someone still waiting for closure. It could set them free. And subscribe to the Forgotten Chapters so you never miss the wisdom waiting ahead. Your healing doesn't begin with them, it begins with you, today. The reason you can't move on is not because the pain is too great, but because you're still waiting for someone else to close the wound for you. You've handed them the pen, hoping they would write the final sentence in your story. But here's the truth. They won't, and they don't have to. Freedom doesn't begin with their words. It begins with yours. It begins the moment you stop waiting for them to undo what they did, and instead, you choose to rise above it. The apology you've been waiting for is not locked in their mouth. It's alive in your heart. You can give yourself the closure you deserve. So ask yourself, what apology are you still waiting for? Who have you allowed to hold your peace hostage? And most importantly, are you ready to let go, even if they never change? Because the life ahead of you is far too precious to waste on a past that will never be rewritten. If this message spoke to your soul, don't let it end here. Share it with someone who needs this reminder today. And make sure you subscribe to the Forgotten Chapters, because together we are uncovering truths that the world too often tries to bury. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the wisdom still to come. Remember this, forgiveness is not weakness, and moving on is not defeat. It is the ultimate act of strength. The chapter of waiting is over. Now it's time to write the chapter of freedom.